And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. On today's episode, we're going to go over the return from the last video I posted. Now, if you didn't get a chance to watch that video, I recommend going back watching that first because it's going to give you the backstory where all these cards came from. And that video I recorded at the end of February 2021. Here we are currently sitting in January 2022. And at the time of the last video, I was sitting at 200 subscribers. Here we are now at over 2,700 subscribers. So I just got to say thank you to you guys, because without you, that number would not be possible, and this channel would not be fun without all your guys' support. But we're just going to go over real quick, and I'm going to tell you right now, if you're going to pull anything out of this video, you're going to pull it out of what I'm going to do at the very end, because I'm going to compare a couple cards, and I'm going to tell you guys what I really think. But mainly, I can tell you right now, in the long term of the collecting investability aspect, CGC is not the way to go. I am finding out how truly inconsistent CGC really is. And they're inconsistent with their grades. And here's a perfect example of some cards we could go over. So we have this Rattata. Keep in mind, all these cards came from the same, Skyridge theme deck. Now, that's why there's 4 of them. They all were cut off the exact same sheet. And look at the inconsistencies with CGC's grading. Keep in mind, these are all off the same sheet. They were all pack fresh near mint. Surface, 8.5. Surface, 9. Surface, 9.5. Surface, 9. So freaking inconsistent. I have never seen as much inconsistency as I have with these cards. Look at the centering. 9, 5, 9, 9. They all should be the same centering grade because these were literally all cut in the same row on that sheet. Does that make sense to you guys? That this is literally the same row. They were all cut in the exact same line. It is impossible for the centering of these cards to be different. The inconsistency is terrible. But I'll tell you right now, for the long term of CGC, there is no way that they're going to do good in the long term. And, they give out 8.5s way too easy. And like I said, please stick around to the end of the video because you guys are really going to pull a lot out of it, I promise you. But, here's actually an example of how all the cards should be, okay? You see this Snorlax? How all the subgrades are exactly the same, 8.5, 9.5, 9, 9.5. This is how literally every card should be because of how these were cut at the factory. They all came off the exact same sheet. They were next to each other. So when you have centering 9, 9, 9, 9, that's good. But then you have this surface 8.5. They should not be any different. Maybe you could have some corner edges and some edges issues. Maybe those are the ones that you can go. But to have one be a surface 9, one to be a 8.5 is just proves that whoever the grader was not consistent. They had zero consistency to their grading. So we'll just go through these real quick. I normally wouldn't go through these type of grades with you guys, but because I did post that other video, I felt it was important. And, this 8.5 for this fastball, centering 9, surfaces 8, corners 8.5, but then they give the edges a 9.5. It's just the 8.5 is literally the worst grade ever. And it's a sad thing, look at this, right? Here's this surface. Again, you got to keep in mind where these cards came from and that they were next to each other. Surface 9.5, surface 8.5. The inconsistency there is crazy. But it's sad. You know what? And, it's just disgusting how bad CGC is. And I want you guys to keep something in mind. A CGC 9 is going to sell for less than a PSA 9. And on top of that, not only is it going to sell less, it's going to be graded much harsher. So your grade might actually be a PSA 10. So not only is it going to sell less than a PSA at the same grade, it's going to sell for less and probably be at a higher condition, which is just stupid. 8.5, 8.5, 8.5. Look at this. Like, the bad thing about all these 8.5s is in the future, I'm going to need to crack all these and resubmit them to PSA. Because, you know, I like to have at least 9 or higher. For CGC, for my reverse hows, I'll make an exception for the 8s. But it's not something I try to have a lot of if I don't have to. So, I mean, these cards were all near mint. They were all, you know, super pack fresh. Now, if you guys are familiar with Skyridge, the condition is usually pretty dang good. But, like I said, inconsistencies here. You know, and this is the big one. The surfaces should be the same because of how they came out. Again, you have EVs, see, like that's actually relatively good consistencies. You got all 9s, all 9s, all 9s, edges 9.5. But then here, look, 8.5 centering. On the sheet, they were all in line. The centering should not be any different. And we'll go over the back of some other cards, but we're not going to go over the back of every one of these cards because I can tell you right now, it will just take so long. But, I mean, to have, it's just, the whole grading for CGC is frustrating. Listen, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, don't ever send another card away to CGC. They're just a shitty company. And the fact that none of these cards have been a 9.5 yet, but yet they'll do shit like this. Give you a 9, 9.5, 9, 9.5, but they won't bump up your corner. So we'll, just for this one, because it is so close to a 9.5, we're only a 0.5 away from either cornering or centering for it to bump up. We'll look at the corners just of this one card to see if we see any issues. So, this, yeah, see, this is why I don't want to look at the back of these, because all these cards are perfect, but there's all this plastic shit all over these cards, because CGC's quality control is terrible, in my opinion. They need to just take, like, you know, a rag, wipe all these things down before they send them off to people. So here's a corner 8.5, so let's see what could be a corner issue out of 8.5. So I do see a little whitening right there. Maybe right there. It's hard to say. That little dot is 8.5. Fuck you, CGC. You fucking suck. Like, centering 8.5. They're on, it was cut in the same line. This is stupid. I'm telling you what, I have one more submission from CGC that I'm just waiting to get back, but I'm done with CGC. CGC has shot themselves in the foot with how harsh of graders they are with their super inconsistent grading. Like, you know, the crazy thing is this card for PSA, for the Flareon being a rare, is actually a pretty valuable card, even in PSA 9. I have to now crack this slab and submit it to PSA. And I'm pretty confident I'm going to get a 10 on that. Got a Lapras. Same thing with this Jolteon, you know. We got a 9, 9.5, 9, 9. And let's look at the back. I don't see... I see a little corner nick right there. But if you think that's enough to keep it away from a PSA 10, you're wrong. And I'll prove that at the end of the video. But man, it's just, This whole return is just so disappointing. 8.5 centering. Fuck you, CGC. Surface 8.5. Oh my god, look at the inconsistencies with this one. Surface 8.5, surface 9.5. They were cut off the same sheet. They were freaking next to each other. Oh, stupid. 8 surface. You're telling me a card that was cut off the same sheet next to each other goes from a surface of 8 to a surface of 9.5 for cards that were literally on the same sheet next to each other. I mean, 8 is now, that's officially the worst surface grade we've seen. Like, where could the surface issue be for this card? Whatever. Fucking inconsistent CGC. Bullshit. But now, I told you guys if you wait till the end of the video, we're almost there. It did have some reverse hiles in it. So we got a Pillow Swine. Again, surface 8.5 makes sense because it's a reverse hile, so you would see some surface issues. So maybe that makes sense. But the problem is, if you've noticed on all these cards, for centering, for almost every single card, they've given a 9. Now, I have another Weedle reverse hile, so this was the second reverse hile. So if you look at the centering on this card, you can literally take your other Weedle and line it up perfectly. And you see that there is no centering issues on the front of this card. You see you can line up this card. You see that? You can line it up perfectly. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. There is no centering issues. So centering 9. So now we'll flip it around. We'll look at the back because you're going to say, well, maybe the back has centering issues. Tell me if you think that card is off center. And even if it was off center, tell me you're going to deduct it an entire point, go from a 10 to a 9. A 9 is pretty drastic when you're talking about centering. That is this good. And this is literally every single card in this pile. They instantly just go with that 9 centering. Like, I could just grab any random card. See? Any random card, it doesn't matter. And it's probably going to be a 9 centering. Oh, of course, those are all 8.5 centerings. But, it's just frustrating. Like, it's as if they're so worried about giving out high grades that they won't do it. So, this wasn't part of the return video that I did yesterday. But I just want to show you. So this was part of my submission, but I wasn't originally going to do this video. But I want to show you how lazy their grading is. So they just gave these 2 Raichus that was part of that submission yesterday just 9s across the board. And you might say, well, a 9 is an okay grade for this Raichu. But listen, I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to compare it to this Gem Mint 10. Now, so, if you look at the centering, you can look to see if you think it's off-centered or not. And looking at the Raichu, right? Looking at the corners of this card, there's no issues. There's a little white dot right there. I'll give him that much. That is the only white dot. But they gave it a 9 across the board. Now, when you look at this PSA 10, if you look at the back of this card, there is a bunch of obvious whitening issues. You have this right here, if you can see that. Then at this corner, there's a whitening issue here. But now this card still managed to get a PSA 10. And while this card, this CGC card, in my opinion, is of far, far superior quality of condition of card. With the exception of, yes, this 1 dot right there. But we already saw that there's 2 dots on this PSA 10. This card will sell drastically less than this Raichu. I want you to think about that. So if you're grading cards to invest in the near term or even in the long term where you hope your collection will rise in price, you will never be able to. Because no matter what, even though you know that the condition of this CGC card is in fact better than this PSA 10, the buyer of these cards do not care. They value this exact same non-hollow Raichu rare from Skyridge drastically different. They value this PSA card by a whopping amount of money more than this better conditioned CGC card. And that's the thing I want you to keep in mind for the long term of this hobby, is that if you continue the grade with CGC, which I will never grade with CGC again, you will lose money in the long term and you will hurt yourself. There's a lot of cards in this pile now, all those 8.5s, that eventually when PSA's prices come down, and if I ever decide, I might have to send all those cards back and have them regraded by PSA. And it's going to suck. It's just, this is frustrating, guys. And you know what? It's always funny because when I make these videos, there's always the same people come out of the woodwork and comment about how good CGC is. And it's pretty funny, like, I'm almost at the point with my tinfoil hat on to think that some of these people must work for CGC. But normally, I like to end my videos with, catch you on the next video, but I'm not going to end this video like that. Today, the way I'm going to end this video is, go fuck yourself, CGC.